You know that feeling at the end of summer when you're getting back to your work, your routine, and your goals, and you're determined to do it differently, especially this year. I had a client in that very same position last year. She had been podcasting consistently throughout that year, and fall came around and she was just burnt out by not seeing the results. The momentum was there and her content was solid, but it wasn't moving the needle in her business. She wasn't seeing any ROI. That's when she came to me and she said, I know I'm supposed to be consistent, but I don't feel like it's doing anything for me. I feel like something is definitely missing and I need help. And she was so right. And she was missing a real strategy, because I know we're all told stay consistent in the podcasting space. But consistency is not a strategy. What you need is not just little tweaks. You need a full aligned system that actually helps your podcast grow from the very beginning. Because if you just wing it and go ahead and podcast without a aligned system, you will eventually have to apply it. Or you will be burnt out and overwhelmed and you'll just stop podcasting. Most podcasters don't grow because they don't have a strategy. No more. Welcome to the show, Podcast to Grow, where I help coaches and entrepreneurs turn their podcast into their most powerful business tool. I'm Elena, and I'm breaking down exactly how to get more listeners, more impact, and more sales. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Power Podcast series. This is the last part of the 5-part series. So if you haven't listened to everything, go back and listen. But today I'm walking you through an exact fall strategy plan that will help you to see that ROI by the end of Q4 from your podcast. And these are the exact shifts and strategies that I gave this client that we worked on inside of the membership PodStar. And whether you're launching something new or reviving your podcast or finally ready to stop winging it and grow your podcast, this fall strategy roadmap is for you. So let's get into it. And my client, right? She was doing everything, publishing weekly. She was promoting on socials and in her emails. But none of that was adding up to real results for her. No roadmap from her podcast to conversions. It was just content, like an extra social media platform. And we don't want to be doing that here. We want to use our podcast much more strategically than just posting and having a 24-hour window for our content. And her perspective on her podcast, she felt like her show was very valuable, but she couldn't see how her podcast could connect to her bigger business goals. She was too close to her podcast to see what was going on. It wasn't until we worked together that she was able to see her podcast had become disconnected from her message, her offers, and her overall goals and her ideal clients. That's the kind of clarity that most podcasters don't see until they get someone to help them zoom out and look at the full picture. When I was able to audit her podcast from a strategy lens instead of a creative one, I was able to see the shift that needed to happen for her. And here is what it was. Her episodes were packed with value, but they weren't leading her listeners anywhere. It was just, here's what I have to say, and then there was no action for them to take after they listened to the episode. Big mistake. And also, her topics weren't mapped to her offers or her launches. Her episodes were kind of randomly placed. There was no structure of episode to episode. And also, her titles and show descriptions were not optimized, so she was missing out on visibility and discoverability just from that. We have realigned everything for her, and I created a clear content to client pathway. I also implemented my episode ecosystem method for her, which made it so much easier for her to create episodes and have episodes that actually match the pathway. We also clarified her content pillars and created a checklist for every episode to keep it consistent and client ready. She was able to go from stressed and scrambled to feeling like she was completely in control of her podcast and could actually tweak little things to make things happen with her listeners or get those conversions that she had been totally not getting and not having anything. She was able to actually book a few calls, and what happened was her episodes started to attract leads towards her. She was able to repurpose her podcast into 2 blogs that actually ranked on Google, and she was also able to get 3 guesting spots using a pitch that we refined inside of PodStar. The most important thing was that she felt so much more confident and in control of the content that she was putting out and how to repurpose it and utilize all of it to keep working for her and generating over and over again. And I want to say that strategy doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a 12-step system. It can be a super easy thing that you're implementing that you can actually see a result from. And that's what I want to help you do, is create a strategy plan that actually gives you an idea of how to start tracking your episode or the content that you're putting out to see how exactly it is taken in by your listeners and then what kind of action they take after it. Because your podcast just needs to hit that one person to make a difference. And I know you're in podcasting to make a difference. Okay, let's get into the fall strategy plan that's going to help you actually make these shifts. And what I have for you is a 3-part aligned growth strategy. And I want to let you know that this is not a whole overhaul for your podcast. This is just small aligned tweaks that can really help you build that momentum, get those results that you've been looking for by just utilizing some focus shifts. Okay, so step number 1 is reconnecting your podcast to your offers. I want you to ask yourself these questions. What am I selling or promoting this season? If you don't work in seasons, just think, what am I selling or promoting this quarter or maybe this amount of episodes? And what you want to think about is what your overall growth goal is, right? Is it building an email list? Is it selling that one offer that you haven't been able to sell maybe, or you want to start trying and seeing if it sells well? Or you're looking to actually start building your community through your podcast? Or maybe it's all about expanding your visibility this season. And then you need to ask yourself, what do I want my listeners to actually do after they listen to this episode? And I mean, this could be something as simple as you want to see more DMs in your DM box, right? Or it could be something a little bit larger, like you want them to get on your email list, or you want them to subscribe to your newsletter. If that is the thing you want them to do, that better be in every single episode that you are doing that season or that amount of episodes. It has to be in there. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that if you want to see your listeners actually take that action. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. For the next 3 to 4 episodes, you're going to support this goal in those episodes. So you want to use solo episodes to shift belief. You want to use guest episodes to expand visibility and social proof. And you want to use series structure to build super momentum. So that is step 1. Step 2 is we want to optimize the key system here. So what you're going to do is pick one strategy system that you want to improve on this quarter. That could be your episode structure. Maybe you need to have clearer hooks and better call to actions. Maybe it's your SEO optimization that you want to work on. Maybe you need to go back to older episodes and redo those titles and episode descriptions so that they're much more optimized. Maybe it's that you want to implement your own guesting strategy, you being the guest expert on other people's podcasts to start building momentum and visibility in your own podcast. And I want to say that you don't want to try to fix everything at once. You just need to choose one of these to focus on this quarter. You don't want to focus on too much because you're already revamping a couple episodes and starting to implement your call to actions and your direct podcast to offer. Okay, so step 3 is something I haven't talked about much on the podcast, and that is more into podcast analytics. So during this fall strategy plan, I want you to track one metric that actually matters. And no, this isn't about just that download number. We're going deeper than that. So what we're going to look at is something more like episode completion rate. How much of the episode is actually being listened to? This kind of data is often not looked at or thought about. And where you need to go and find this data is not going to be in your podcast hosts. This is going to be on Apple Podcast Connect or Spotify for podcasters. It's actually going to be in both places. If you have more listeners on Apple, then you probably want to look at Apple. But if you have more listeners on Spotify, then you want to be looking at Spotify. But you also might want to be looking at both because maybe you have a mixture. And I think most podcasters do have a mixture of Apple and Spotify listeners. Those are the biggest platforms other than YouTube that you need to be looking at. I don't know if YouTube has a completion rate for an episode. They may, and I probably should find that out. But it's an important metric to really hone in on where you can be enhancing your episodes, making them so much better and tighter and more listenable to your listeners. Okay, so the next thing we're going to track is, are you getting DMs directly from your call to actions? So this is a fun little experiment. See if your podcast can actually generate DMs directly from your call to actions, because if they do, then that shows you that your listeners are so ready and eager to be with you, to hear from you, to talk about subjects, and they will give you a wealth of knowledge if you have direct contact with them. This is where you can get so many more episode ideas. You can start building your community, start building your email list. All of that you can do when you have direct contact with your listeners. Okay, so the next thing we want to check is, are we actually getting discovery calls from our podcast listeners? So if you have a call to action in your episode description of book a call with me or in the end of your episode, then let's start tracking if that's actually happening. And the next thing we want to check is our email opt-ins from our episodes. So if you are tracking your emails about your episodes, you want to be looking at the open rate and seeing from there how many people are actually then reaching out to you after they read that email or listen to that episode. Because I'm assuming that you have the episode link in the email, so you're directing them directly there, or maybe you even have the episode player in your email. All right, so after that fall strategy plan, I just want to give you a pro tip to maybe even simplify it just a little bit more for you. Pick one episode to track from start to finish very closely. What is its episode title? What call to action do you have included in that episode? How did you promote that podcast across all of your platforms? Did you mention this episode in your email list? What data can you see 30 days later from that episode? What's its completion rate? How many clicks? How many replies? These are the kind of things that we need to be looking at much more closely to actually see if our message is resonating correctly with our audience. Doing a deep dive on one episode will teach you so much about your messaging and your positioning than looking at 10 episodes at once. It helps you to understand what's working on a much more micro level, so that can teach you how to scale and convert. These 3 steps and the pro tip will align your content upgrade your system, track what really matters. And this will take you so much further than just concentrating on those download numbers. And if you want help to actually build your version of this, you can join PodStar, where I will help you do this in real time. Or if you're interested in one-on-one strategy, I also can help you there. And bonus tip, if you want to share this with an accountability buddy that can help you to focus more on your podcast this season, then do that. Or if you want to share this with your VA so they can help you get to where you want to be with your podcast, go ahead and share this fall strategy plan with them, because it's going to make a difference. Okay, this wraps up the 5-part podcast power series. And we started with talking about clarity and why strategy actually matters to your podcast. Then we talked about guesting with intention and how valuable that can be for your visibility plan overall. We also talked about SEO optimization and how to do it and what really matters right now with your podcast in optimizing your titles and show descriptions. And we also heard from one of my strategy clients who had a real transformation with her podcast. And now we're bringing it all home by putting it all together in our fall strategy plan. This isn't about working harder. It's always about working smarter when you work with me. I definitely believe that. And I want to make sure that every podcast out there has a better strategy and they actually see results that they're looking for. Because when your podcast is aligned with your goals, it is one of the most powerful tools you can be utilizing in your business. And if this series lit a fire under you, go ahead, re-listen, take notes, share this with a podcast friend who needs a better podcast strategy, and know that momentum doesn't come from perfect execution. It comes from aligned action. Take everything that you've learned from this Power Podcast series and apply it to your podcast. Please go ahead and join us inside of PodStar. That is the perfect place for you to be to get support from me at a lower cost. And what is inside is a framework that actually works, expert-led workshops, strategy sessions with me, and feedback, and a community of podcasters who are building with purpose just like you are. Or if you are looking for more one-on-one strategy, then go ahead and DM me strategy and I will help you out and we will find the right price point for you. Both links are in the episode description, so just go ahead and swipe up on this episode and you will see the links right there. Or go ahead and DM me PodStar or strategy and I will help you out and get you those links. And I just want you to know that podcast listeners get $40 off of their first month inside of PodStar. So really, this is the best time to go and join right now. And just like I said, I have that fall podcast strategy PDF. If you want that, go ahead and DM me, please. And let's make this the most aligned season yet for your podcast. I can't wait to see you next time. I am coming out with my next season, let's say October or November. I'm not sure where I am yet on that, but I'm super excited. And I'm so happy to have this series out now. And I'm so happy that you joined me on this journey. See you next time. That's a wrap for today. If you loved this episode, let's keep the momentum going. Leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more coaches and entrepreneurs find podcasts to grow. And I really appreciate you being here with me. And if you're ready to grow your podcast strategically, join us inside Become a PodStar today, my membership where I help you turn your podcast into your most valuable business tool. Head to the link in the episode description or DM me PodStar on Instagram at Vibe and Voice Media. That is VIBNVOICEMEDIA to get all the details. Can't wait to chat with you. Hit follow and I'll see you next week.